This episode of Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
This is Phil Perich, and you are listening to Capes and the Lunatics Sidekicks Podcast.
Face it, Tigers, you've hit the jackpot.
Hello, that's right, it's the end of the month, so it's time for Lilith's favorite episodes, the Scarlet Spider Sausage Fest. I am Phil, joining me as always. Well, Mr. Dad himself, it is the hairiest in the Spider Cast, it is. I'll be back though.
That's hello. Good to be here.
And on the other side of the planet, even no shirt can contain his arms. It is.
Hey guys, it's Ray, and it's nice and hot here, so tank top central.
Oh, that's great. It's like what is it, like 90 degrees down there? Or
Yeah, pretty much.
whatever your Celsius is. Yeah.
I've been playing some tennis. Been playing that in the old. Oh, I shouldn't say. I was going to say something else. In the old tank top. So yeah, catching some rays, getting a tan line.
It's some rays. Yeah. Hey, meanwhile,
Right, son.
it was snowing here yesterday.
Oh really? Jeez. And Matt, at your place, it always seems to snow, and then every time I look at Instagram, it's nice and green and lush. It's like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
Well, I don't know. We usually get snow weekends, and then it goes away. I think it's only snowed like twice this year, but both times were pretty heavy, and it's weird. Just rain yesterday. But,
He's up in that upper right corner of the U.S. So yeah, he's
Yeah. Oh, well, no one likes rain, so.
nah.
Uh-oh. We got a Lilith Hellfire groupie in the chat.
Oh,
Chad.
top of the morning.
Chad.
That's Chad.
Those Lilith Hellfire groupies.
Oh no, yeah. Hello, Chad. Good to see you. Good to hear you.
The power of Chad.
The power of Chad.
He's usually on. If we do a morning, I think when me and Lilith were recording yesterday, he was on.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Cool.
All right. So should we jump into these since we have 5 issues?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I know last time Ray wanted some action, so you're getting some action this time.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Morning, Chad. All right. So yes, we're doing the Mark of Kaine, which begins in Web of Spider-Man 124 from May 1995. Walls. The title is Walls. So 90s. All right. So remember, arrested for murder, Peter Parker is put before a press gallery to take photos. Among the reporters are Betty Brant and Ken Ellis of the Daily Bugle. Betty insists that her longtime friend is not a killer. She is also surprised to see that Peter is being represented by Grant Buckner and wonders how Peter can afford the star lawyer. That's when Connor Trevane announces that they are closing and the remaining proceed. Oh, this summary's a mess. That's when they're closing. That's when Buckner steps in as Peter's client, as Peter's lawyer insists that the client wants to have an open trial because he believes in freedom of the press. Also among the audience is Jacob Raven, whose investigation into the murder of his partner led to Parker's arrest. However, due to the encounter that has left his face scarred, he knows that Parker is innocent of the crimes he has been arrested for. Meanwhile, Ben Reilly is amazed looking at the results on the recent tests on Mary Jane's baby. Stuart Traynor, who ran the test, reminds Ben that although this is as amazing as it looks, Mary Jane is only in her first trimester. Mary Jane reiterates her concerns about her baby and why she allowed Ben Reilly to come for Tess. She is concerned that her husband's irradiated blood may have a negative effect on their unborn child. Trainer assures her that he is the closest thing to an expert on Spider-Man as she can find. Certainly that if there were a problem, he could find it. Deciding to put her mind on more cheerful thoughts, Mary Jane asks Ben how he feels to know he is going to be an uncle. Yeah,
I don't know how that works. Would he be a co-parent?
Yeah.
Genetically, it's
not a brother. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But get it? He's Uncle Ben.
My two dads. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Unknown to all, the mystery man known as Kaine is hiding in the shadows because it's the 90s. He has been keeping tabs on Mary Jane since he was struck with a vision of her murder at the hands of a stranger, or not so stranger. At that moment in Forest Hills, yet another man who thinks himself as Peter Parker goes looking through his old childhood home. Having recently regained his memories, Parker becomes furious that he has been robbed of 5 years of his life. One of the things he has learned is that his beloved Aunt May has recently died. Furious over what else he may have missed, Parker loses his temper and lashes out, wondering who did this to him. Recalling how another man calling himself Peter Parker has been arrested for murder, Peter rushes out, wondering what else this alleged imposter has done with his life. Well, back at Trainer's lab, Mary Jane is assured that she will be contacted as soon as Trainer is able to learn something from the test results. When Ben offers to walk her home, Mary Jane insists that she can take care of herself. Once she leaves, Ben puts on his mask, intending to follow her home anyway, but Seward stops him as he still needs Ben's help. While at the Daily Bugle, Joe Robertson continues to try to talk to Jameson about in the reporting on the Parker trial. He reminds him that even though Peter used to be an employee, the Bugle cannot remain silent. Jonah decides to allow Joe to report on the story, but orders it to be buried deep in the newspaper. Despite protests from Robertson, Jonah points out that Peter's up against the wall and he doesn't need this wall. By this time, Peter has been transferred to Rikers Island. There he sits in his cell where he allows himself to mourn for the death of Aunt May. Suddenly, a fire breaks out in one of the other cells. Using his spider powers to sneak out of the cell, Peter breaks into the other cell and pulls the prisoner out of the smoke. He then gives the inmate mouth-to-mouth, reviving him. He then manages to slip away and return to his cell before prison staff can enter the block and put out the fire. While elsewhere, Mary Jane is walking home when suddenly a hand reaches out of a nearby manhole and pulls her into the sewers. Her kidnapper turns out to be Kaine, while at the same time, Jacob Raven is confronted by Stunner, who has come to enlist his help in finding and getting revenge against the killer of her beloved Dr. Octopus. While back in the sewers, Kaine tries to explain to Mary Jane that he only wants to keep her safe. However, the wife of Spider-Man refuses to believe it and breaks free from his grasp. Turning on a water pipe, Mary Jane blasts Kaine with a powerful jet of water, allowing her to escape. Back on the street, Mary Jane wishes her husband was out of prison in order to assist her. Suddenly, she runs into the man who also thinks of himself as Peter Parker. Seeing Mary Jane, this other Peter Parker recognizes her and asks for her help. Modern comics could never it could never cram this much into one issue.
Yeah.
It is chock-a-block, I must say. But having said that as well, I mean, this compared to the subsequent issues, this is nothing. So it's a good setup. But yeah, no, it was great. What did you reckon, Matt?
Yeah, this in a modern comic, this is probably a 5-issue arc in itself. Yeah, we got mistaken identity. We have past lawsuits coming back from Salt Lake City. Baby drama. This is a lot packed in there, and a good table setter for the 4 issues to come. We'll talk about issue 5 is a little weird in terms of the other 4, but
well, that's an unlimited. Of course, that's weird.
Yeah.
I think the main thing about this as well, like, it's called the Mark of Kaine and stuff. But I don't know about you guys that at this stage, this first issue, the thing that the character that really got me was this third Peter Parker. He was the main kind of question mark, I think, out of this whole thing. And yeah, at this stage, I mean, again, as you say, Matt, we'll get into the later issues. At this stage, I was thinking could this be the real Peter Parker? Sure, he seems a bit off kilt, just a little. But could this be Peter? I mean, he's been cooped up for 5 years or something. He's missed a lot.
They got him. They got Ray.
Yeah. So, it was good. I mean, there was a cast of thousands for this, and as you say, this could easily be 5 parts, 5 issues. But
and of course, yes, thank you, Chad. Classic Betty Brant drama. Yes.
Yeah.
The girlfriend. He can't be a murderer.
Yeah.
He never killed me.
But I mean, also as well, I loved how comfortable Peter was in prison. Like, because he's got the powers, right? You know how he's bending the bars, putting them back. He's escaping his cell. He's doing all sorts.
Did you see that? Did you see those pecs, man? I mean,
oh yeah. Then he sits back and he he does that thing. He's loving it. He would have no problem with the soap. You know what I mean? So
whoa! Just because he gave one guy mouth to mouth, Ray. Settle down. So yeah, I mean, classic '90s issue.
I'm also surprised that a storyline hasn't been called The Mark of Kaine yet.
I know. How cool is that?
Yeah.
But they were saving it.
Yeah.
The art was good as well. Who was it? Is that Stephen Butler, right? From Web of Spider-Man. Very cool art. He does the breakdowns at least.
The cover art is real cool too. It's got the smashed letters on it. There's a famous Web of Spider-Man where Spider Hulk that had a similar.
Yeah.
The text from Web of Spider-Man is all smashed up.
Yeah.
Smash it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though, because as brazen and all that as it is on the cover, Kaine really, he doesn't feature too much in this issue. I mean, there's a nice splash page of him.
Yeah, Parker prison fake crimes of the heart.
Yeah, there's a whole mini series out there about Peter's travails in prison. I can see it. But yeah, but it's funny. Like the cover really shows it Kaine, but he really has an incidental part in this. Again, because most of it has to do with, well, as you mentioned, a bit more on Mary Jane's unborn child. Then you have this third Peter Parker visiting the residence and finding out about Aunt May. So there's a lot of characters developing on that sense. Whilst all Kaine does really, towards the end he does capture Mary Jane. I guess that's a big thing, but that only happens really at the end of this issue.
Oh yeah. I mean, so much happened, but it was still like set up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very much set up. I mean, once we get this out of the way, things are rollicking in those four other parts. It's really cool. Things go totally off the rails. But in this one, I loved it. And Phil, you kind of had a little bit of a chuckle as you read the synopsis when Mary Jane, she kind of turns that water. What is it? The water pipe?
Yeah.
On at the end. I think that's hilarious.
I don't think that's how that works. I'm like, if you're turning on water in the sewer, I'm pretty sure you need some kind of tool. You need a wrench or something to turn.
Yeah. She just kind of wrenched it, and off he goes. He didn't expect it at all. But we get this continuation, of course, of Kaine wanting to protect Mary Jane. This has been running through as far as we've been covering the issues. That he has this premonition. He wants to save her. So essentially it's a noble thing, but he's still seen as kind of like the villain in this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're not going to get an answer on that vision until, what is it? Spectacular Spider-Man 228, I think. So it's a little bit. Oh, jeez. Wash the spider out.
Down came the rain,
Gently down the rain.
But also, well, Matt, I mean, I'm going to ask you, what did you think of Stunner? She certainly was, wasn't she?
Yes.
All I'll say is she's enhanced in some way.
Very, very much.
And not just the usual 90s enhancements either.
Not like 17 cargo pockets. That's not what you're talking about.
No. But Phil, does she turn up anywhere else? I mean, who the hell is she? I've never, she seems very generic for me.
I mean, it show up. I mean, before this, we didn't cover the issues, but like, that arc where Doctor Octopus actually dies, and I don't remember. We might get a little bit into the origins later on, but yeah, she's not all she appears to be. She's actually. I'm trying to remember if they actually show where they met. I don't think during the Clone Saga, but I mean, yeah, she hooked up with Dr. Octopus at some point, and like she's actually a woman sitting in a VR machine. Okay, so that's what I was.
Oh, okay, right, really?
Yeah, so that body, yeah, she doesn't actually look like that. That's like a VR body for her.
Okay. Gosh, yeah, for sure. Be hard pressed for the MCU to bring her into the cinematic universe. So, but she has a go at Raven. So, again, there's stuff happening with that.
Yeah, she wants Kaine. She wants to kill Kaine.
Yeah. But yeah, this issue was, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. When I started reading this 5-part issue, I mean, this was certainly, as you say, a setup, and I didn't expect any more. It kind of just got me reacquainted to kind of where we were, the status quo. And yeah, I think it did a job. And the art was decent. The art was good. I really liked it. So,
all right. Anything else on this, or should we get to the next one?
Moving on.
All right. So the next one, Amazing Spider-Man 401, probably my favorite cover in art because it's Mark Bagley.
yeah.
Again, May 1995. Down in the Darkness. All right. So Mary Jane is confronted by a man claiming to be the real Peter Parker. He tells her that he has been locked up for 5 years and the man that she married is not the real Peter Parker, but a clone. Where have I heard this before? He tells her that he has been. Mary Jane tells this Peter Parker that she can't deal with this new mystery right now because someone is chasing her. Before she could tell Peter who it is, they are confronted by the stalker himself, the assassin known as Kaine. Kaine warns her that this is neither her husband or Ben Reilly, but an escapee from the Jackal's lab. Although Kaine says that this clone is the real threat, Mary Jane tells Peter to prove otherwise by protecting her. Peter vows that he will always be there to protect her. Although Peter leaps to attack Kaine, he easily overpowers him. However, this distraction is long enough for Mary Jane to escape. Recovering from the attack, Peter is still reeling from everything that has changed and tries to follow after them. Meanwhile, the real Peter Parker is sitting awake in his cell at Rikers Island. He thinks about all of his recent tragedies, the most recent of which is being arrested for murder. He thinks about how he has been pushed to the brink and made it back, and how he doesn't want to relive this again. His thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of the astral form of Chakra. She tells Peter that his wife is in mortal danger. Despite his questions, she disappears without telling him any more. Meanwhile, Mary Jane manages to call Ben Reilly at Seward Trainor's home. She tells him that she is in danger from Kaine and another Parker clone. Unfortunately for Ben, she hangs up before telling him where she is. This is because Mary Jane has decided that she is going to stop running and fight back. While back at Rikers Island, Peter Parker refuses to sit back and do nothing while his wife is in danger. Using his spider powers, he manages to silently break out of his cell and sneak out of the prison. Reaching the edge of the island, Peter is about to leap into the water and swim the shore when he is stopped by, Judas Traveler, who warns him that doing so would be a mistake. Peter isn't sure why Traveler cares, and neither do we, pointing out how during their last encounter he was toying with people like chess pieces. Judas fails to explain himself, saying that he has come to offer him a better way. At this moment, he has created an illusion to make it look as though Peter is still sleeping in his cell. That's when Chakra appears and offers her aid. Peter accepts the offer and is teleported away. Judas Traveler is then joined by Screer, who finds the entire situation amusing. When Screer thinks that Traveler's interest in Spider-Man and his clone are perhaps because they remind him of himself, Traveler responds by telling Screer that he doesn't know him as well as he thinks and walks away. No. Meanwhile, Mary Jane has returned to her home where she has armed herself with a gun and is fully prepared to use it to protect herself. As she prepares to leave, she is stopped by someone wearing a Spider-Man costume. First, she thinks it is her husband, Peter, but when this Parker removes his mask and starts talking about the imposter who stole his life, She realizes that this is the other Peter Parker that has been stalking her. Mary Jane orders him to stay back, but Peter continues to insist that he is the real Peter Parker. Even though his spider sense is buzzing like crazy, he continues to reach out for her. He is shocked when she actually shoots, but she misses hitting him, striking a photo framed on the wall instead. Still, this other Peter Parker still reaches out for her, but he is then knocked out by Kaine. He tells her to come with him in order to stay safe, but she refuses. When Mary Jane tries to shoot Kaine, he disarms her, and the pain caused by twisting the weapon out of her hand causes Mary Jane to black out. Hearing someone coming in through the skylight upstairs, Kaine then picks up Mary Jane and flees into the night.
Hey.
When Mary Jane wakes up, she finds herself in Kaine's underground lair. Kaine tells her to get comfortable, saying that she's going to be there for a very long time. Back at the Parker home, the Scarlet Spider finds the Peter Parker clone. Thinking this is the real Peter, he asks what happened to Mary Jane. This is when the real Peter Parker comes bursting into the house, demanding to know the answer to the same question as they all point at each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's a standoff.
Okay. Well, first big important point. Matt, I know you're about to be a father soon. Never let your pregnant wife go into a sewer. It's not good.
I am. So far, we've been able to avoid it, and I don't think I have any doppelgangers who are going to confront her when I'm out doing something else. But yeah, there's always that risk.
Yeah, they generally say alcohol, seafood, and sewers for pregnant women. Things to look out for. So,
Chad, Mary Jane passes out more often than a Lovecraft or Cat. I think Aunt May still holds the record, Chad.
Yeah. There's a lot of unconscious, a lot of freaking blacking out here. But I mean, again, to be fair, to take this issue on at face value, again, I think that third Peter Parker you're left wondering still. I mean, Mary Jane doesn't shoot him. He does look a bit dodgy as he kind of comes towards her, and she's got the gun, but she doesn't shoot him. And then he reaches his arm out like to her. And so again, like you're thinking, okay, could he be the real one then, But Kaine kind of puts an end to that. So, a lot of action here. I mean, just backtracking a bit, oh, geez, this Traveler thing. I don't know about you, but whenever you see Traveler or Chakra or Scryer, you just kind of, just go already, just get out and let us read the rest of the story. I don't know about you, but
yeah, because Traveler, Scryer, they really have nothing. Once everything is all said and done at the end, it's like it really don't play much of a part. And it's basically like, oh, they were just messing with Peter Parker, and again, DeMatteis, created the character. I don't know if he had a plan for him, but he leaves. So like at the very end of the clone saga, when Peter's coming back, I mean, it's I think DeFalco cleans it up where it's like, oh yeah, he just had some weird mental powers. He made everyone think he was all powerful. It's like,
I mean, it's a shame because DeMatteis must have had or may have had like some good plans for the character, but like it shows that when the creator who has the plans leaves, the characters just become kind of arbitrary, really, to the story, and it very much so feels that here, even though I'm reading it for the first time. It already feels like Traveler is just like a redundant, figure. But yeah. But having said that, though, again, I think the art was fantastic. Mark Bagley. There's a shot here where Peter Parker is bouncing out of the cell and he kind of leaps. He's on the top right hand corner of the page. Oh, fantastic! I really good stuff for art.
Oh yeah, Bagley's like my favorite Spider-Man artist. He's like the master at pretty much anything he draws, but I love his Spider-Man stuff. What you think, Mary?
It even makes Judas Traveler look good.
He does, actually. You're right. He does.
That's true.
Yeah.
For what he is, he does look.
Yeah. No, I love the art too, and I love what he does with the shadows and just like making the the Spider-Men, I'll call them, I guess, are all slightly different, of course, but he especially when you see the last page, you're like, oh, reminds me of the meme and the pointing, it's coming, but yeah, it's a fun one to dot back to after not having read it in so many years.
Yeah, and I think he does a really good, again, Mark Bagley, a really good Mary Jane as well. There's a lot of shots here where she has to have a lot of different expressions. Like there's that bit where she, come on, there's something where she's kind of smiling, but then she says, "Your mask, take it off," and there's that kind of drop in her face where she's reminding herself, "Oh God, okay, he might not be the real Peter Parker." So, and then there's even that. There's an expression further to that where she finds out when he starts talking about the imposters that you're not the real Peter. So she's really got some really nice expressive expressions on her face, which I think is really good. And again, testament to Mark Bagley. Really great stuff.
Oh yeah. And again, I still don't know if like if it was just a red herring all along, if they were toying with the idea of making that third Peter Parker like the actual real Peter Parker.
Yeah, who knows? It seems like they were kind of keeping their options open, so to speak. They introduced this third Peter Parker, and they were kind of feeling their way through the same way that the readers were feeling their way through. Like, is he the real Peter Parker? I mean, we'll see later on in the next few. I think they resolved it in this arc of the Mark of Kaine.
Yeah,
who the third Peter Parker is without any shadow of a doubt. But it was fun to have him anyway. It was yet another thing to add to make things complicated. But the fight with him and Kaine at the beginning was cool. There's one page where it's all just fighting and what do you call it? Onomatopoeia or the sound effects, and where Kaine just plants his face into the wall,
That was great. Yeah.
I think it was really cool. But he just shrugs it off and starts climbing up the wall. So really cool moments here and action's starting to happen.
It's quite ironic that Kaine's like the one who's like, too many clones.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, because he hasn't had much action here. He's kind of the one. He's almost the avatar for the reader, right? Because he turns up at the end, and then you got Peter from prison, third Peter Parker, and Kaine's there. Oh no, not Kaine, Ben's there, and it's like, okay, what's happening here? So that's pretty cool. A bit of the Phantom of the Opera with Kaine as well, taking Mary Jane.
I know.
Yeah.
Although, we know, the reader, at this point, the readers don't, but we know who Kaine is. So I guess, there's a reason he could be attracted to her.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because the real Peter. But yeah, again, of course, like I said, Bagley, my favorite artist. Of course, I love this art.
Yeah, really good. If anything, I wish there was more Scarlet Spider action in this, but but he plays his part. He's there at Seward Trainer's facility, and he's kind of a bit of like the stopgap between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like that title page, it just made me think. It's like, were they gonna red herring, or were they thinking about setting up? That's the real Spider-Man.
Yeah, because he moves pretty much like Spider-Man. Yeah,
and they give him the whole, he wants, fight. He's been locked up for 5 years, but he wants the Amazing Spider-Man. But
what do you think of Chakra, like, and all that? This whole thing about her, this potential game. There's something that's happening there, with Traveler and Scryer and Chakra. They're leading Peter Parker towards stuff. You probably know because you've read the thing. I haven't. I don't know whether it amounts to anything.
They really don't, like. At the end, it's like, oh, Traveler's just like, I was manipulated just as much as you were, but it's like they never really.
Okay.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it's just like, the big mastermind, I guess, has been manipulating everybody. But
It's a writing cul-de-sac, I guess. Then doesn't go anywhere.
Just killing time because the sales department's like, we need to keep this going.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you guys ready for the next one?
Yep.
Art 3, yeah.
All right. Yes, from Spider-Man, number 58, again, May. Written by our good friend Howard Mackey.
Yes.
Spider, who's got the spider? Mary Jane has been kidnapped, and while the Scarlet Spider confronts someone who looks like Peter Parker in a Spider-Man costume, they are interrupted by another Peter Parker who has just come crashing through the door. This Peter Parker is the one who's been incarcerated at Rikers Island and has come seeking his wife, Mary Jane. The Parker in the Spider-Man costume becomes angry, telling the other two that he is tired of the deceptions and demands to have his life back. However, the recent arrival insists that he is the real Peter Parker, and he demands that the other tell him where his wife is. Hearing this other man call himself Peter Parker prompts the Peter in the Spider-Man costume to attack the person he claims is an imposter. However, before they can come to blows, the Scarlet Spider gets between the two and convinces them to stand down, as fighting won't help them find Mary Jane. Totally confused, the Scarlet Spider at least knows that he is not Peter Parker. Stay tuned. That's when the new arrival says he broke out of prison after Judas Traveler told him his wife was captured by Kaine. Turning to the Parker in the Spider-Man costume, the Scarlet Spider demands to know what happened. Distracting me, Chad. Hey, he goes, the new name for the Clone Saga.
Hey,
the Parker Garage. Okay, yeah. Scarlet Spider demands to know what happened. This Peter doesn't know anything because he was hit from behind, but promises to save Mary Jane, then passes out as he is still suffering from the blow to the head. After seeing to this Peter Parker, Ben checks on the other. This Peter has pulled out the remains of his black costume and begins gearing up to go hunting for his wife. When Ben asks what they should do with the other Peter Parker, Peter tells Ben that clones are his area of expertise and leaves out the skylight. When the Scarlet Spider goes to check on the other Parker, he finds that he has left the house as well. Meanwhile, I was going to say this is a pretty spacious sewer. Meanwhile, in a cave below Manhattan, because that's
yeah.
It looks like the penguin. It's like the Penguin's lair from Batman Returns. It's pretty big. That's underground. What? Nobody knew or was going to do anything with it.
Please, if there was that much space underneath Manhattan, Matt, you know they'd be like somebody would be selling rent down there. They'd have an apartment. Be selling apartment spaces down there.
Yeah. Probably developers for sure. Yeah.
What's New York, like 8 million people or something? I mean, yeah.
Subterranean walk up, walk down.
Quick access to Central Park.
You have a skylight window, opaque. It's a sewer.
Opaque skylight.
Yeah.
Great plumbing.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Iron window.
Oh my God. All right. So yes, in a cave below Manhattan, Mary Jane tries to get Kaine to explain himself to her, but he doesn't say anything. Fed up with the silent treatment, she decides to leave. Kaine blocks her path and finally tells her what he wants. He wants what her husband Peter has, and there is only one way of getting it. Whoa.
Ooh.
All above ground, Peter Parker scours the city looking for his wife, hoping that she will send some kind of sign to him. He also wonders who Kaine is and why he is so obsessed with his life. That's when the Scarlet Spider catches up and insists that he wants to help Peter find his wife. He also knows a lot about Kaine and that Peter will need his help. When Ben asks Peter what their next move is, Parker tells him that they need to wait for Mary Jane to signal them, as she knows what to do. As the two restlessly wait for a sign from Mary Jane, they are unaware that they're being observed by the other Spider-Man. Down below, again, stalking. Down below, Mary Jane continues to get Kaine to try to explain himself. When she doesn't get any further answers from Kaine, she decides that she needs to act now. However, she fears what might happen if her husband breaks out of prison to rescue her. Suddenly, Kaine begins to scream in pain as he gets another precognitive flash of someone murdering Mary Jane.
Oh, no.
I know. She feels that this moment is coming soon. He feels that this moment is coming soon and begins to bellow in rage. Fearing for her life, Mary Jane decides she needs to call her husband anyway. She then activates a spider tracer she has hidden in her necklace, deciding that she needs to in order to save herself and her baby. At that moment, all three Spider-Men are suddenly bombarded by a powerful jolt from their spider senses. Peter tells the Scarlet Spider that he modified a spider tracer so Mary Jane can use it to call him in the event she is in trouble. He then tells the Scarlet Spider that this is his life and orders him to butt out of it before swinging away. However, Peter isn't going alone as the other Spider-Man decides to follow after him, convinced that he is the real Peter Parker and that he is reclaiming his life. Meanwhile, in the cave, Mary Jane decides to make a break for it again. Seeing that the woman is fleeing, Kaine follows after her. While on the surface, Peter is about to go down into the sewers when he is stopped by the Scarlet Spider. Ben insists on going first as he has fought Kaine before and he will keep him busy so Peter can focus on saving his wife. They enter the sewers together. They are confronted by the other Spider-Man who insists on finding Kaine and killing him for taking his wife.
That's a bit of a red flag.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
He angrily strikes a wall, shattering the brickwork and revealing a tunnel into the cave below. By this time, Mary Jane has found the tunnel and tries to run to freedom. However, Kaine catches up to her and grabs Mary Jane by the hair. Before he can harm her, Kaine is blinded by a spider signal from the belt of the other Spider-Man. He demands that Kaine let Mary Jane go, causing Kaine to pause. That's when he and Mary Jane get a good look, and that there are three Spider-Men in the tunnel with them. Fearing for Mary Jane's safety, Kaine tosses her. He fears for her safety, but tosses her aside. Leaps at the trio. As the three men battle Kaine, Mary Jane wonders how this is possible and fears that all three of her saviors might be clones. And she doesn't even know about Kaine yet. As Kaine incapacitates the Scarlet Spider and the other Spider-Man, Peter leaps in and strikes their foe as hard as possible. Surprisingly, Kaine doesn't even bother dodging the punch and is hardly fazed by it. This shocks Peter, who demands to know who Kaine is. However, Kaine has questions of his own as well and demands to know if this is the real Peter Parker or another clone. Before he can harm Peter, the Scarlet Spider leaps in and draws Kaine's attention away from Parker. With their enemy distracted, Peter decides to take this opportunity to go looking for his wife. By this time, Mary Jane is trying to escape through the sewers when she is stopped by the other Spider-Man who tries to convince her that he is her husband. However, Peter Parker leaps in and knocks out the other Spider-Man. Peter then convinces Mary Jane that he is really her husband by reminding her that she hates his black and white costume. This convinces Mary Jane, who then hugs her husband, glad that he is here to rescue her. Hearing this, the other Spider-Man rips off his mask, insisting that he is the real Peter Parker. Mary Jane and her husband try to flee the scene, but they find Kaine blocking the other side of the tunnel. All right, everyone keep straight on that.
I think so. I have a chart and...
All right, okay. I think Chad got the sewer thing. Illegal loft housing. Landlords would talk it up as an ergonomic urban refuge of reclaimed land. It's actually a fetid penguin.
Oh, yeah. God, how much space do you guys have down there? My God. But one of the main things I think that struck out to me was I loved how they used the three Spider-Man costumes to just so you can kind of follow who's who. We've got the black Spider-Man costume with the real Peter Parker from prison, Ben Reilly, of course, and hey, this is where it all comes unraveled. The third Peter Parker in the classic Spider-Man costume, talking about killing everyone, it just going total nutso. So at this stage, I was kind of like reassured now. It's like, okay, I know who the players are now. And it's actually framed at the end where the real Peter Parker and Mary Jane are flanked by Kaine and the psychotic Spider-Man at the end.
I love it. I love it's just Mary Jane in a sewer full of Peter Parker.
Yeah. My God, yeah, and as you say, they don't even know about Kaine yet. I mean, we're talking about clones. We're talking about she didn't have enough Peter to begin with. She's got more than enough now,
Well, she is pregnant, Ray.
Well, that's it. But no, again, I really enjoyed this. Although the artist was really unknown to me. I think the art was done really well. Did a very good Kaine. I thought there was one shot of Peter Parker with a black costume when he was on the rooftop. His face looked a little. Did you guys get that vibe? It looked a little too round for me. In the rain where he's standing doing his heroic pose.
Maybe.
I don't know. I just found that really weird. Just very flat and round. But other than that, I mean, yeah, really, really good art, I thought. And things are ramping up, so we're starting to see who's who now. And we're kind of Mary Jane's caught in the middle, and we're kind of in there as well.
Oh yeah, Maddie.
I love the use of the black costume, and I love that it was a surprise. It wasn't like tipped off on the cover, where sometimes they'll do that in other issues, and because we hadn't seen that in a while, it's funny to think that after all he's gone through with Venom and the symbiotes and the bad experience in retrospect of bringing that black costume back, he's like, in case of laundry day, I'll keep a little bit. I'll not keep the living parts of it, but I have backup gloves and a mask and stuff. So and finally it pays off. And yeah, I like that the art was sort of gritty with this one, and a lot of good sewer stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of sewer stuff. Yeah.
I was trying to remember the last time he wore that black costume. It might have been that crossover we did, Ray. Remember when he went down in the sewers look for Morbius, and then he on the way home he swung into like 2 issues of Moon Knight. Yeah, I think that's
Wow. Okay, that's very.
He wore it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a nice callback anyway, and again, it was just it's aesthetically very good to see because you distinguish it. I love the fight as well. I mean, we get our money's worth here with 3 Spider-Men fighting Kaine, all to do with Mary Jane. Ironically, all of them want to save Mary Jane, so they're just fighting for the sake of it. But you see the power of Kaine as well. Reminded me a bit of Moon Knight here, Phil.
Yeah,
with Kaine not blocking the shot, just letting it happen. So that was pretty cool as well. But the big thing for me was this kind of unraveling of that third Peter Parker, and again we see more of that later on. But this one certainly you get a sense with that, especially with the letterer. I'm not sure can't remember who the letterer is. Kill them all in that final outburst by Peter Parker. It really just does, without any shadow of a doubt, tell you who or where he's coming from.
Oh my Lord. Chad must have had his caffeine this morning. Bagley Parker should be known as the bombastic Bagley man. He is pretty stout compared to the other incarnations, and it's hard to see the height difference between Peter and Kaine. Oh,
good point. I mean, Kaine does look a little bit bigger in some instances. I mean, there's one where if I can show that one, the Womp. I mean, he looks big, so he's meant to be bigger, right?
I think so. Yeah, for some reason, the clone generation makes him bigger. I don't know why, but it does.
Yeah, he certainly does look it in some panels. So, yeah. But again, not much on Scarlet Spider. He gets done pretty quickly at the end of the last page. But again, we'll see what happens. So he's already kind of in the clutches of Kaine. So that was again a little bit disappointing because we're all here for Ben.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Don't worry, Ray. In a few months, we're going to be getting plenty of Ben.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else, or should we get to the next one?
Yeah, let's get to the next one.
All right. Spectacular Spider-Man 224. Again, May 95. Oh, yeah. Artist Sal Buscema.
Yes.
Tom writer. Wilson Kevich, inker.
Yeah. Takes a dark turn.
Oh, yeah. The Assassin. Oh, my Lord. The title, The Assassin with My Face. What is this about Moon Knight? Hey. Thinking he was Peter Parker, the man who emerged from a cloning chamber in one of the Jackal's labs only days earlier, suddenly begins to transform into a freakish creature. This is before the eyes of the real Peter Parker, his wife Mary Jane, Kaine, and the Scarlet Spider. Kaine tells the couple that this creature was created to be a weapon by the Jackal and vows to the Parkers that he will destroy this creature in order to keep them safe. This is when the Scarlet Spider breaks free from Kaine's grasp, having played possum to find out what's going on. He tells Peter and Mary Jane to run to safety while he handles both Kaine and this new Parker clone. Not liking leaving Ben alone to face these maniacs alone, Peter leaves in order to keep his wife safe. Meanwhile, the Peter Parker clone attacks Kaine and the Scarlet Spider. He is still convinced that he is the real Peter Parker and that he will be restored to normal after destroying the Jackal's enemies. Scarlet Spider briefly considers this as a possibility, but refuses to believe that Peter would be capable of committing murder. Despite the fact that Kaine is his greatest foe, the Scarlet Spider realizes that he has to fight with him. At that moment, along the shore of Rikers Island, Judas, Traveler, and Screer stand watch. Traveler has created an illusion to trick the guards into being unaware that Peter Parker has broken out of prison. Traveler assisted Parker's escape so he could save his wife and unborn child. Judas is curious to see if Peter will return to prison after he has succeeded in his task. Back in the sewers, Peter and Mary Jane continue to flee from the battle. The tide turns when Kaine uses the Scarlet Spider to distract the Parker clone long enough to rip down the ceiling upon their attacker. The Spider is furious that Kaine would try to kill their foe. However, Kaine reminds him that this shouldn't surprise Riley given his past history. However, his efforts to kill the clone fails as it increases in mass to free itself. By this point, Peter and Mary Jane have gotten to the surface. There, Mary Jane cannot ignore the fact that her husband wants to go back and help Ben and tells him that he isn't taking her any further. Meanwhile, Kaine is restrained by the Spider clone that Ben has started calling Freak Face. But the Scarlet Spider manages to pull him free. He tells Kaine that they need to go somewhere that will give them more room to fight. While back on the surface, Mary Jane explains that despite the fact that she hates that Peter constantly risks his life for others, she knows that this is fundamentally who he is and she can't help but love him for it. She insists and he leaves her to go help Ben, assuring Peter that she can make it home fine on her own. She tells him to come back alive, reminding him that they have a firm date on living happily ever after. By this time, the Scarlet Spider and Kaine surface at a construction site where they are followed by Freak Face. There, Peter Parker arrives and begins launching steel girders at the clone. A slingshot made out of webbing. There's your action, Ray.
There you go.
However, the clone refuses to give up without a fight and tosses a car at Peter, but he dodges out of the way. While the Scarlet Spider is worried about the risks Peter is taking, Freak Face lifts up a propane truck. Before the clone can throw it, Kaine throws a car at the propane truck, causing a massive explosion. Peter manages to get clear of the blast. As he fears for the fate of Ben, Kaine walks out of the flames, filling him with dread. However, Kaine turns around and walks away through the flames. Scanning the wreckage, Peter spots the Scarlet Spider's hand sticking out of the rubble. He pulls Ben out and tells him that Kaine has fled. When Ben suggests they should leave, Peter gets upset that he has to go back to Rikers for a crime he didn't commit. When he accuses Ben of committing the crime, Ben says that this is a lie and to prove his innocence agrees to take Peter's place in prison so Parker can be with his wife and unborn child. As Peter makes his decision, they are unaware that they are being watched by the rooftops by Kaine. He always has, it's in his contract. He always has
stalker.
One thing is. Later that evening, it is Ben Riley who returns to Rikers Island, unobserved by all except for Judas, Traveler, and Screer. Judas is unsurprised by this turn of events and tells Screer that the greatest test of Peter Parker's sense of responsibility is still to come.
Yeah, this really ramped up. I think it was a lot of fun. Did anyone else again think? Look, I really enjoyed Sal Buscema's and Bill Sienkiewicz's art. I think if anything, out of all the parts, this was the most apt part to do it because you see a really an unraveling of that third Peter Parker. Did anyone ever get a sense as well that none of the creative team really understood how to portray that third Peter Parker? He just seems to be like this morphing really big monkey man that it has a bit of like a Reed Richards kind of vibe. There's even that one bit where I think is it Kaine, who was it, that squashes his head and it kind of squinches. It's like really elastic, and he can grow in size and stuff. I mean, of course, that's a very monstrous thing to do, but I have a feeling that no one really thought to design him properly. He just becomes this very elastic kind of villain.
Again, I think that they were toying with the idea of making him the real Peter Parker, and once they decided they weren't, I think it was just like, well, what do we do with him? You use him however you want,
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt. They just like, oh, he's whatever. Let's just make him as monstrous as we can, and for him to be kind of almost like, as I said, Reed Richards or Miss Marvel powers. It just makes him, just a bit of a terror. But
and he will be back and get a new code name that will live in infamy forever.
So he doesn't keep Freak Face, which is pretty cool.
Oh no, he goes with the much cooler Spider Side.
Oh wow, Spider what?
Spider Side.
Spider Side.
Like side with the C.
Like God,
like Suicide. Spider Side.
Oh, yeah, geez. Oh right. Oh,
yeah, there was talk apparently behind the scenes that Tom DeFalco wanted to keep his name as Freak Face. Yeah,
Freak Face is cool. Keep that Freak Face. Jeez.
Yeah, I liked the fact that this Freak Face Spider-Man was so convinced. I mean, I guess they were all convinced, less so Ben Reilly now, that they're the real Peter Parker, and despite not having the traits that all of us fans and those familiar know about him, and like not being murderous, but
there was still a bit of doubt. I mean, although he without a shadow of a doubt seemed like it to be a monster, they even put in that little bit where he's punching Kaine, and Scarlet Spider's thinking, geez, could this actually be Peter Parker? And he's just being kind of manipulated and changed by Miles Warren or something into this crazy, subhuman / superhuman thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that lasts all of like one page before you kind of just go with the fact that, this guy's just total nutso. But the other thing was Mary Jane, I think that was a big moment of her literally going to Peter, no, you want to get back in there. You want to save them all. So just go. I was thinking, what if Peter Parker's thinking, oh, I don't really want to do that.
Peter always wants to jump back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It was like, oh, but Mary Jane's asking me to do it. Oh, I probably should do it.
And again, I mean, maybe he wants to jump back down there because, he, for some reason, he's convinced that Ben Reilly is the killer. And it's like, wait a minute, you just saw another clone. So wouldn't, before you accuse Ben Reilly, be like him? Maybe it's like a third or fourth clone that's the killer or something.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense because Ben has shown to be compassionate, at least towards Mary Jane and stuff, this whole time. So I don't know where Peter Parker's thinking of this, but yeah.
That's just the writers trying to throw you off the trail.
Yeah. But Matt, what did you think of the art? It's very different from Spider-Man art.
Yeah, for sure. This one kind of reminded me of Daredevil art or something. It's a little grittier, darker twist on it. It definitely stuck out in terms of the other issues that we've read in this story. I'm glad that but I'm not. It's not something that I like totally reject. Whereas sometimes, in the past, if you're reading a long arc like Phil, Will, and I did on the Quantum Zone with Quasar, and sometimes with like the Star Blast issue, there'd be Star Blast Saga rather. There'd be this drastically different artwork from issue to issue, which could. In some ways, as a kid, it did more than it would now to me, but it would like turn me off if I didn't connect with the art or didn't associate it with what I was used to. Even if it was like good in retrospect, I was still like a little hesitant with it. Like I kind of always respected Sam Keith with his work on Marvel Comic Presents and later The Mask and stuff. But it was just like something about it where I was like, okay, this is not what I'm used to, but I like it. But sometimes when you were reading whether it be Wolverine or Spider-Man or the Hulk, and then like a Sam Keith issue or cover would come in, you'd be like thrown off a little bit, but enough that you still dug it to put it aside. So that's kind of what I've matured into now.
Yeah,
different. I'll accept it if it lives up and matches with the story wise, which I think this did enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I said it before. I like Sal Buscema's art. I like Bill Sienkiewicz, but I don't think they were a good combination. I think the inking was like so dark sometimes that it was real muddy. It's like it was hard to tell sometimes, and everything looks like it's taking place in the middle of the night, no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this issue was taking place at night, but I mean, even other issues, I swear it's like high noon, and it looks like it's still like it's like midnight.
Yeah, it's a really weird combination because the colors are still quite vibrant. I mean, I was actually reading just before we started recording a lot of the recent issues of Spider-Woman by Carla Pacheco and Pere Perret, and fantastic art and stuff. But the color really does bring it down like to a really dark note, because this is the King in Black. You know, it's one of those tie-ins. So it's just everything is dark in that sense. But it's funny in this one, it is kind of dark. I can see what you mean, Phil. But the colors are still there. You know what I mean? So it just gives a really weird kind of vibe. I like it. I mean, the fact that because it's really grotesque. I mean, especially with that third Peter Parker, that first page and the second splash page where his face is just really distorted.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not your typical Spider-Man thing. And it may be very jarring for a lot of fans that were reading this when they were reading this whole arc. So yeah, I
mean, yeah, it's not horrible art, but I think it's really different than every other issue in this arc. So it kind of, I remember the first time it kind of took me out of it a little bit.
Yeah. But big things happen here anyway. So we see, obviously the reveal of Peter Parker. You know, the third Peter Parker as well. But also as well, let's make it more complicated by having Peter Parker dress as Ben Reilly and Ben Reilly dress as Peter Parker. Let's just mix it up even further. So I actually enjoyed that because you're kind of so invested at this time that it's like, okay, why not? Let's do another twist. And having said that as well, I thought it was very noble of Ben Reilly to do that. So again, it shows his heroism to Peter.
Oh yeah. Oh, we're gonna get plenty of next month. Peter dressed as Ben. So. All right. Anything else on Spectacular, or should we move on to the Unlimited? The always entertaining Unlimited, Spider-Man Unlimited.
Yeah, that's a big issue, isn't it? So.
Yes, and of course, yeah. Because I think was there just this one story in this issue? It's been a little bit since I read this, but
it'd have to be, surely. It's like 50 odd pages, right?
It's huge, but I mean, again, I mean, it's a Mark of Kaine, but I don't know if it really needed to be in the Mark of Kaine arc, unless they just wanted 5 parts. I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let me do the synopsis. Yeah, well, yes. All right. So yes, again, Spider-Man Unlimited number 9, May 95 again as usual. Unholy.
Spider-Man Unlimited it's like an annual every 3 month kind of.
Yeah,
that's the point of the book, right?
Yeah, I remember around this time DC kind of did the same thing because Superman had 4 monthly books, so it was like, you know, with the math, it worked out there was like 4 weeks a year where there wasn't a Superman book, so they created a quarterly book to fill that in. They're like, oh, now you get a Superman book every week of the year. Which you should know, Ray.
Wow.
All right. So the Hobgoblin has called together Electro, the Beetle, the Shocker, Scorpia, the Vulture, and Mysterio. He has gathered them together to discuss the threat of Kaine, who has already killed Dr. Octopus and the Grim Hunter, and he fears that they will be next. Despite their mutual interest, the group can only bicker with one another, particularly Mysterio, who is untrusted after he recently betrayed them. In addition to this, the Vulture doesn't think that the Hobgoblin was fit to lead them and tries to fight for leadership. That's when the Shocker gets between the two, reminding them that they all need to be working together in order to stop Kaine. Hobgoblin agrees, and he begins going over his plans, his planned search areas where Kaine has been recently sighted. However, they are not going unprepared, as the Hobgoblin has brought them a large number of arms to prepare for the coming battle. The newly formed Sinister Seven.
Yes,
Lit up the
we got to talk about that.
It's the 90s. Meanwhile, Peter Parker is swinging across the city disguised as the Scarlet Spider after switching spots with Ben Reilly, who's taken Peter's place in prison. He just wants to go home to check on his wife, Mary Jane, as he is worried about her and their unborn child after Kaine kidnapped her. Suddenly, his spider sense begins going off, alerting him of the Beetle as he flies by. The two see each other, and unaware that this is Spider-Man, the Beetle retreats since he has never faced the Scarlet Spider before. Parker is surprised that the Beetle would suddenly retreat, but goes after him anyway. Seeing that the wall crawler is following him, the Beetle flies through an office building in order to get away.
Oh, Beetle.
Following after him, the Spider discovers that the Beetle injured someone while trying to flee and has to break off the chase to get the woman medical attention. The authorities thank the Scarlet Spider for his help, and the hero swings away. As he does so, he doesn't realize that his web pack has come loose and fallen to the ground. Examining it, the officers find a black Spider-Man mask and some web shooters. This is the moment that Ken Ellis arrives on the scene, and he wonders why the Scarlet Spider would have Spider-Man's equipment. The Scarlet Spider decides to head home so he can figure out what to do now that Ben has taken his place in prison. By this time, the Beetle realizes that he managed to lose the Scarlet Spider just as the Hobgoblin radios in for a status report. However, neither the Beetle nor Scorpia or Electro have been able to find any sign of Kaine. Hobgoblin is particularly disturbed with how Mysterio keeps making things difficult, but decides to deal with him once Kaine has been dealt with. The Vulture, still bitter over Hobgoblin's leadership, doesn't respond, while the Shocker's trail leads him to discover he has been wasting his time chasing rats. This infuriates the Hobgoblin, who is becoming more desperate to find Kaine as all of their lives are at risk. As he stands on a rooftop thinking his next course of action, the Hobgoblin is unaware that someone is watching him from the shadows.
Of course.
Wonder who that is.
Rooftop shadows, I'm sure.
Wonder who that is. Back at the Parker residence, Peter announces that he is home, but Mary Jane doesn't believe it and pulls out her recently purchased gun to protect herself. Peter enters the bedroom with his hands up, explaining that he and Ben Reilly switched places so he could be with her. The fact that he's wearing the Scarlet Spider's costume causes Mary Jane even more distress because she doesn't know what to believe anymore. When he expresses his feelings for her and their unborn child, although this makes Mary Jane faint, she finally believes him and she grabs hold of her husband as she needs comfort after all the recent insanity. Meanwhile, Ben Reilly waits in Peter Parker's cell at Rikers Island, ignoring his cellmate. He can't stand waiting for something to happen. He arranges to make a phone call and tries to get a hold of Mary Jane. She doesn't answer, and he leaves her a voicemail, further confirming that he and Peter switched places. When Mary Jane asks if she should answer the phone, Peter tells her to leave it. Still wonders what he should do, as he needs to find some way to clear his name and get Ben out of jail. Hanging up the phone, Ben wonders why Mary Jane isn't answering when the guard tells him that he has a visitor. At first, Ben thinks that it might be his lawyer, but it actually turns out to be Felicia Hardy. Hearing that Peter Parker had been arrested, she has come to Rikers to offer her assistance. Since Ben Reilly has never met Felicia Hardy before, the entire meeting is awkward. He is surprised when she says she knows he is really Spider-Man. When Peter refuses her, quote unquote, Peter refuses her aid, she wonders what is wrong, especially after Parker abruptly ends their visit. As she leaves Rikers, Felicia realizes that her friend acted like he didn't know who she was, or that she is secretly the Black Cat, leaving her to wonder what's going on. At that same moment, the Hobgoblin is about to call in his team and give up for the night when someone ambushes him. At first, it looks like a misshapen Spider-Man. However, this imposter reveals himself to be Kaine in disguise. The Hobgoblin's gunshots are heard at the nearby Parker home, prompting Peter to put on his Scarlet Spider costume and go and investigate, despite Mary Jane's objections. Meanwhile, Kaine is able to hold his own against the Hobgoblin when the Shocker, Beetle, and Mysterio arrive as backup. As they blast a water tower, the Vulture swoops in and saves the Hobgoblin as the torrent of water washes Kaine off the roof. Watching from across the way is Electro, who wonders if this killed Kaine, but the assassin survives and gets the drop on him. Kaine then asks who wants to die first and stands his ground as the Sinister Seven swarms him. As the team struggles to land the blow, the Vulture swoops in again and tries to pull Kaine into the sky. However, Kaine snaps his wrist, breaking free and falling back to the rooftop. The Sinister Seven aren't the only ones looking for Kaine, as Jacob Raven has enlisted the aid of Stunner to try to find him as well. Stunner threatens a local crook named Tony Prescott, who tells them everything he knows about Kaine. Stunner warns him that if he is lying, she will be back to hurt him, making Jacob glad that she is on his side. At that moment, the Scarlet Spider, quote-unquote Peter, arrives at the scene of the battle between Kaine and the Sinister Seven. Even though Kaine is his foe, he can't sit back and let the Sinister Seven murder him. Before Mysterio can shoot Kaine in the head, the web slinger swings in to stop them. At that same moment, Mary Jane is woken up by a phone call from Seward Trainer. He has completed the results of the tests he ran on her unborn baby and asks her to come to his lab to discuss them. Deciding that this is too important, Mary Jane gets dressed and leaves immediately, unwilling to wait for her husband to return home. Meanwhile, Peter is trying to stop Kaine and the Sinister Seven from killing each other. However, all this does is make the Sinister Seven turn their attention to the wall crawler, putting both he and Kaine on the defensive. While at the Daily Bugle, news of the battle has J. Jonah Jameson upset because they don't have a photographer to capture it. When Joe Robertson suggests they send Cole Cooper, their newest freelancer, Jameson has no choice but to secede. Back at the scene of the battle, Spider-Man and Kaine have narrowly avoided a barrage of pumpkin bombs. Unfortunately for the Sinister Seven, the blast knocks out Electro. The wall crawler then uses the Scarlet Spider's modified web shooters to bombard the Vulture with impact webbing and stingers. At that moment, Mary Jane has just gone over the lab results with Seward Trainer. The news is upsetting to Mary Jane, who wonders why bad things constantly follow her and Peter, and she rushes out of Trainer's lab in tears. By this time, Kaine has taken down the Hobgoblin and the Shocker, while Spider-Man takes down Scorpia. While their guards are down, Mysterio uses his illusions to make Kaine think that the Hobgoblin has killed Spider-Man. In reality, he is attacking the wall crawler himself. The web slinger manages to fight Kaine off, but he escapes in the confusion. That's when Mysterio reveals that he used hallucinogenic gas on Kaine and disappears. Realizing that Kaine could put Mary Jane at risk, he swings off to look for Kaine again. Meanwhile, police are still examining the scene of the battle between Spider-Man and the Scarlet Spider against the rogue spider clone they dubbed Freak Face. Freak Face. Unseen by the officers, Screer appears on the scene and recovers the remains of Freak Face. He decides that this clone of Peter Parker still has some uses and teleports away with its remains. Later that evening, Felicia Hardy reads the newspaper and reads the story about the Scarlet Spider's recent activities and the mystery behind this new hero having some of Spider-Man's costume. This confirms to Felicia that the person she visited at Rikers was not Peter Parker. Before she can investigate this further, there's a knock at the door. Answering it, Felicia finds Mary Jane, who is soaking wet from the rain. Mary Jane tells Felicia that she needs someone to talk to and is invited in.
Yeah, well done, Phil. Wow, that was
again. Even in modern day, even if the issue was still this big, modern comics would never stuff this much in an issue.
Oh, it's a massive amount. Yeah, but yeah, this was a very different part to end. I guess this thing. I guess that was all wrapped up in the previous one with Freak Face, and this was just a nice excuse to have the Sinister Seven. As you say, Matt.
Yeah. Not advertised on the cover. It's Sinister 6 on the cover. But
it is.
Sinister 7 in the pages. Who do you think's the 7th? I think it's the Beetle. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone was
the
like,
7th wheel.
Oh, crap. We said Sinister 6, but there's 7 of them here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, action aplenty and stuff, and this is very Kaine-centric. But we've lost the third Peter Parker anyway. And if anything, this was, I guess, a fun thing to see Peter Parker as Scarlet Spider. I mean, that was the whole thing. As a reader, you just had to remember that. And there was that thing with Ben Reilly in prison as well. So you had to just remember that they swap spots. But there was a lot of interesting little bits in here, like with the Beetle very nervous at Scarlet Spider and him running into antennas and chimneys and such. I thought that was quite funny.
Oh yeah. But yeah, look at it. If you look at the cover, remember we were saying, it says Sinister Six, but there's 7 inside. There's only 5 of them on the cover.
Yeah.
Someone's got to do their maths properly. Come on.
But again, did this have to be a Mark of Kaine issue?
Not really.
No, it didn't. It didn't. Only because Mark of Kaine was the main antagonist in this.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe because Kaine was a big part of this issue, but
but it had nothing to do with the previous story, really.
Or maybe because they wanted to drum up sales on Unlimited because they're like, oh, this is the last part of the Mark of Kaine.
Yeah. Because I mean, really, the only thing you needed to know was that Peter Parker was the one in the Scarlet Spider costume, and that was basically it. And then this was kind of free of the Mark of Kaine story. It was just the Sinister 6 or 7 or 5 or whoever wanting to make sure that they don't get offed before Kaine comes and gets them.
It was basically just a big punch 'em up, but it's like
it was there. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Scorpia. She had a very downplayed costume, I thought. I liked Electro, Mysterio, Gobby. I don't know what you call him. He's pretty cool. And what are your thoughts on this youngified Vulture as well?
Oh my god, that's
reboot, not a old, bald, fragile man.
Yeah, exactly.
Strange. Electro still looks classic. He's
good. Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna get back to the Vulture, don't you worry.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, he didn't last this long in this iteration, did he, Phil? Like he
I mean, he made 1 or 2 more appearances in the Clone Saga. I mean, yeah, it's like right after Peter cut, right after the end of the Clone Saga. I think they pretty much,
kind of walk that back,
re-age him again. Yes,
yeah. And I've got to say as well is Herman Schultz, the Shocker. He's not as dumb in this as he was in the other. He seemed quite serious and focused.
Not as stupid as he was in October, Ray.
Yeah, exactly. He's come well. He's done well in January. But yeah, I mean, I like the dynamics of the Sinister Six as well. They're really dysfunctional.
Yeah.
None of them work. I mean, people aren't adhering to the radio silence when they have to be silent over the radio. There's bickering over the airwaves. It's just but it makes it a fun kind of thing to watch, I guess.
And I mean, it's why was Kaine wearing a Spider-Man costume?
I know that was a lot.
he just casually mentions it that he picked it up while stalking Mary Jane.
That's why Peter didn't have a spare costume, but it's like it served no purpose. You could tell that wasn't the real Spider-Man. But I'm like, was that like a fourth wall thing where was the writer someone saying, "Hey, consider that, hey, Kaine, Spider-Man is there?"
Probably.
Is that a subtle hint that he's a clone?
Yeah. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, it could well be. I mean, for sure. But it was kind of like the Hulk dressed up as Squirrel Girl. It was pretty obvious. It wasn't Spider-Man, especially with that hump on his shoulder. But yeah. No, that was a funny moment. And is this? I haven't checked the artist. Is this Ron Lim? Because it has vibes of that. I could be totally wrong.
Check. There was 3 pencilers on this. Ron Lim, Ron Garney, and Todd Smith. So
okay. I can see the Ron Lim aspect of it. Just the faces are very Ron Limmy. But yeah, no, I thought the art was okay. I mean, Mark Bagley's art was a lot better. Stephen Butler's art was a lot better, I thought, than this. And I'm a big fan of Ron Lim as well. I just don't think it really was that good in this.
Oh my god, I think there's literally 8 inkers on this.
Wow.
That could be the problem too. Inks, Palmer, Emberlin, Tahoe, Milgram, Palmiotti, Jansen, De La Rosa, Hudson. All inkers.
Right. And there's some good ones in there as well. Like you're talking about Palmer, Jansen, Milgram, at least. They're big hitters.
But I mean, 8 inkers. I mean, maybe it's a bigger page count, but yeah, that's probably the problem. It's like none of the artists are bad, but it's like it's just constantly shifting inkers. It's just
I think so. But yeah, this one was fun. It wasn't really an ending to what you'd think, you know.
Yeah,
it's like a separate thing altogether.
Yeah. Wasn't the big 5-parter wrap up we were looking for. It was just like a really long after the credits sequence.
Yeah, because it didn't really wrap anything up. Kaine gets away. You know, you don't get your Kaine. I mean, you see, Springer makes off with Freak Face, and it's like,
and you got to feel for Mary Jane. My God, that scene where Peter Parker comes in dressed as Ben Reilly. I mean, what a head F that is, you know what I mean? Yeah. And no wonder she bloody faints. Like, I'd be surprised she didn't faint, and go into a coma for a few days. But she wakes up and she gives him a hug at the end, so that's okay.
I know. It's just, oh my God. It's like, how do I know it's you?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. She's got to ask these secret questions each time. There's, what did you say to me, on the afternoon of such and such?
I mean, I don't think Ben Reilly would lie to me, but I mean, again, it could be like a 10th clone or something.
Yeah. Exactly. So I got a feel for Mary Jane in this one. But having said that, the main part of this story was very much a sinister. And you got the Felicia Hardy thing happening, which I thought was pretty smart. I mean, because that whole awkwardness of not knowing who she is, and she's going, hang on, how can I be acting so weird? And he's going, like, well, I really have, in his head, going, I've really got no idea who you are. So that was a fun thing to do. Yeah.
I'll wait till we get to some Ben and Spider-Man stuff. I mean, there's some good stuff in there. I mean, there's another Black Cat story, and it's just
yeah. This Black Cat cameo was kind of cool, but it kind of just seemed like they just want to have a lot of characters in Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
we'll get like 1 or 2 pages of her next month. So, all right. Yeah. So, anything else on these? Did you guys enjoy these?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun read, and it was cool to go back to this era and across all the Spider books at the time. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like, despite what we said about this final part 5, I didn't find it too disruptive to when I read the whole thing. I thought this was a, and of course, people are shitting down the Clone Saga and stuff. This 5-part of the Mark of Kaine, I think it was pretty cool. If only to see that third Peter Parker just totally lose it and go just crazy and become this gelatinous thing. It was fun. It was good. I don't know where it goes from now, other than Mary Jane not knowing who the real Peter Parker is. That's one of the lingering things. Kaine is still out there as well. He still want to get his hands on Mary Jane. I guess that's another thing. But what this arc resolved, I can't really say other than that really short introduction of the third Peter Parker, and that being kind of like revealed that he's not, and there you go. But yeah, no, it was enjoyable. It was good. How about yourself? Did you like it? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love the Clone Saga. And I mean, it was all good, even though I was like, the Spider-Man Unlimited, they really didn't need to be a part of the Mark of Kaine. But
yeah, but it was fun. It was fun though. It was good to see the Sinister Six. Yeah.
The 90s punch them up.
Yeah, exactly. Also get a bit of stunner as well, so can't complain.
Rumpy.
That's it. And having said that, though, those interludes with her and Raven, I don't know. To me, they don't add that much to it. Well, she's after Kaine, isn't she? And like we as a reader know where he is, because he's he's fighting the Sinister Six. But yeah, it's fun anyway.
Yeah, they really don't find Kaine until a little bit later.
And And again, also Screer and Traveler at the end. Were they at the end? Yeah. I can't even remember. They just
yeah. Well, remember they see Ben Riley going back to prison and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, sorry. That little bit. They see him going back again. They're kind of like a bad smell. They're just hanging around. We don't want to see them.
Exactly.
Don't want to know them.
All right. So, anything else for these ones?
Are we going to give it a mark or?
Are
you going to
mark?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to give it a mark.
What kind of a mark?
Mark of Kaine. Yeah. Yeah, Matt. I'm gonna throw you under the bus first. What do you reckon?
Whoa.
Yeah, I'll give this a solid. I'll say B. Yeah, B. I'd say B. It's not really B minus.
Okay.
It was a fun, jam-packed, sort of confusing, complicated. But they got it all. They spread it around, and they got it. They even spread a little extra to the fifth part with unlimited. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably give it about a B as well. Maybe hovering between a B minus. I thought it was enjoyable. I mean, like for anyone that's read 90s comics, you kind of know this is the sort of flavor that you're gonna get, and it's fun. I mean, like it's so different from comics you get these days. So there's something nice about it being just totally ridiculous in that sense. And the art was great, I thought, as well. And, you know, you've got to remember there's a cast of thousands, and the writers have juggled it pretty well considering all the characters that they've had to do. Albeit the Sinister Six arrived just in the one issue at the end. But I think they did a good job. So, yeah, I mean, nothing too outstanding, but it was a fun read.
Yeah, I think I'm hovering like around where you're at, B minus. The story was entertaining, even like the parts we consider maybe the weaker parts. It was still entertaining, and again, 90s comics, but yeah, I think Spider-Man fans will enjoy this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Even it could be a little confusing. And this Parker.
I know. Yeah. Well, at least they kind of, earmark it, make it easy for the listeners. Like as we said, like with the costumes and stuff, who's who because they're all different looking.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So February is going to be good. Hey, Ray. Hopefully, Ray sends in some feedback. You got a whole episode of Ray feedback this time. Yeah. So next week, Lilith and I for next 2 weeks we're going to be doing classic Sin Eater. So first week, amazing, spectacular Spider-Man 107 through 110, the death of Jean the Wolf.
Nice.
Yes, followed by spectacular Spider-Man 134 through 136. Both those tales written by Peter David. Oh, and then week three of February, I know I'm going to pique Ray's interest. Spectacular Spider-Man 139, The Origin of Tombstone.
Oh, yes. Yeah, really? Is that spectacular? I always thought it was Webb. I got it wrong. But yeah, I've read that. I love that.
Oh no, it's not even like where he gets his powers. It's just like where he comes from. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Matt, have you read that? Or
I have not, no.
Oh, Tombstone. Brilliant. Bring him into the MCU as well. I love seeing him in the MCU.
Yeah.
And then, of course, next month for Scarlet Spider, we're going to be covering two oversized issues: Web of Spider-Man 125 and Spectacular Spider-Man 225.
Oh,
first appearance of the 90s Green Goblin.
Oh, fantastic! No 69 or no,
not yet.
We didn't even talk about the Hobgoblin leadership skills as the person in charge of the Sinister Seven, and he has this little cell phone that he calls a communicator device too. But
yeah.
Oh, I mean, he's no Dr. Octopus.
No, they're really floundering without Doc Ock, I think.
I know, it's utter chaos. Let's add a seventh member.
Keep throwing members on. Yeah.
Well, I think they were just desperate. They're like, "Oh, Kaine's gonna kill us," you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he killed Doc Ock, he could kill any of us. All right, so should we get out of here?
Yeah.
Let Ray go to bed.
I'll let you guys start your day.
All right, everyone. So send your thoughts, because you know Ray's going to be sending his thoughts in February.
If I can email them properly, yeah.
Time, email them properly.
Yeah.
Oh, and in March we got some Punisher stuff coming, so including the first appearance of the Punisher.
Okay, very classic.
Yes. Remember, it was a Spider-Man book. All right, so send your thoughts on all of those upcoming things. CapeTownLunatics@gmail.com or call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And remember to follow Ultimate Spider Cast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find links to all of our various social media, links to this YouTube channel if you ever wondered what Ray looks like. Matt Kona you see every week, so he's facing everything. Anyway, so yes, links to the YouTube, links to the Patreon, where we're about to do our hard R reviews of movies.
Ooh.
Yes, I wanted to name it the hard R. So links to Patreon, links to merch, everything all in one place. That's Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. And remember to support the sponsors, Tweaked Audio. Get yourself some great headphones, Hunt a Killer. Then go pick up Pod Life, the book, now digital and paperback. Learn all about podcasting, and get that on Amazon. And when you do, use the link for Southgate Media Group right down there in the show notes. Help us support this show, the network, and that figure lurking in the shadows, Rob Master Doom Southgate.
Make it rain, so says Master Doom. Please kick me in the pants.
All right, Maddie, where can people find you?
You can find me at Matt Kona.
Send them diapers.
Dove around. MATTKONA. Or I'm here for you. Come talk.
And we didn't get any this time, so
Suck it, Lilith.
You little bunkies.
All right, Ray, where can people find you in your 20 million podcast?
Oh, come on. Anyway, the best way to contact me is on Twitter at RayRayPod, REY Pod, and that covers all the podcasts. So ranging from Into the Night, the Midnight Podcast, To Know Her Is to Fear Her, Spider-Woman Podcast, Last Sons of Krypton, Superman Podcast, and as well, I'd love to hear more feedback on the Scarlet Spider as well. That I do with these gracious fellows here. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I want to hear more Scarlet Spider fans out there. I know there's plenty out there. Come on.
Did you say Into the Night?
Yeah.
The podcast?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I hear you every episode. I hear you. I'm in your head. You're like Into the Night, the Moon Night Podcast.
Oh yeah, like I keep it as discreet as I can.
Oh wait,
Sausage.
Fest.
It's a really nice package.
uh,
Look how big it is.
Well, it certainly is.
all right, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. The boss will be back next episode. So, join us for the 17th and guest starring Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
But until then, kids, swing on back.